SANDHAN, All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.
Welcome, my dear students, to another session on about the sounds of English. I'm sure as you go through each lecture, it becomes clearer and clearer how the English language is really so unphonetic. And what do I mean by that? We write and we speak, but it seems to be so unrelated so often. Haven't you seen two simple words like BUT and PUT? You're writing almost the same spelling except for B and P, and yet we notice that the vowel sound is different. And that is why it becomes important to learn English pronunciation in detail, to look at the differences, to look at the rules, to look at the changes. And in this lecture today, we are going to look at word accent. Accent, my dear students, another word which you have probably heard for accent is stress. Stress or accent. These are two words which become very important for us who are not native speakers of English to learn, so that we get the right pronunciation and we are understood properly. So today in this lecture we are going to be talking about accent. Maybe why, the how, the when, and of course a lot of practice. That's what we will do in this lecture. So the lecture is, as you can see, about word accent. Let us look at the characteristic features of word accent. This, as I mentioned to you right at the beginning, is important as it is a feature of English. What do we mean by stress? What do we mean by accent? The prominent syllable. As we pronounce words, as you think of any word in the English language which has more than one syllable, you would notice that one part of the word gets to be emphasized, stressed, accentuated much more than the other syllables. And this is what we mean by accent or stress. How do I know which syllable to stress? How do I know where the accent should fall? Is a question that many of you might ask your teacher, might ask each other, might ask yourself. The best thing to do whenever you are in doubt about which syllable to accent is certainly to refer to a good dictionary. And since most of the time we in our classrooms are talking about British English, my dear students, it's very important for you to refer to British dictionaries, British English dictionaries. What do I mean by that? English dictionaries which are published in Great Britain. Because very often you may notice, you may be aware, and if you aren't, then do pay careful attention to how so many words are pronounced differently in American English, maybe more differently in Australian English, and what we follow is the British English. One very good book, dictionary, that you could possess if you are particular about the accent, about the appropriate stress, would be to buy English Pronouncing Dictionary by Daniel Jones. All dictionaries, like your Cambridge and Oxford dictionaries, would have your phonetic transcription, that is, the word as it should be pronounced in phonetic script with the indication of the stress. But if you want to learn about it in greater detail, if you want to go to a dictionary which doesn't have meaning but is important because it shows you how to pronounce the word, then a good dictionary to refer to would be, as I mentioned, the one by Daniel Jones. Now, why do we have stress? As I mentioned, there is prominence, there is more emphasis, there is more stress, and that is why we call it the word accent. But why does it happen? It could happen, my dear students, because of the pitch. It could happen because of the vibration. Do you remember the word vibration? In order to remember that, I would have to ask you another question. Do you remember the word voice? Do you remember the different organs of speech? Do you remember the vocal cords? Do you remember how your teacher probably told you to put one finger here and to see the vibration of the vocal cords? The vibration of the vocal cords produces voice. Stress could also be a result of, could also be because of the length of the syllable. So these are primary words that you should remember before we go on to talking about accent. What are the words that I'm talking about? Stress, pitch, vibration, and length. And then when we talk about accent, we would also talk about the primary accent and the secondary accent. A quick look at what I've been talking about. Why is it there in the English language? Why is it that we have to learn it? How can we learn it better? And what are the reasons for it? Can we go on, my dear students, to the next slide? What is a word? A word is a linguistic entity, right? It has its own form. How do I decide that it is a word? In the English language, when you see it written, you know that there are gaps. There is space between two words. How can I divide a word? A word can be divided into the number of letters that you find. That is the spelling. So if I look at a word like correction, and if you know the correct spelling, which I'm sure all of you do, you know that you will count the number of letters and tell me CORRECTION. That makes it 10 letters. Fine, I know that the word correction has 10 letters. That is the spelling. Okay? The spelling is important when you are writing the word, but the spelling is also important because it gives you an idea of how you pronounce the word. You can't say it at one stretch. So what do? We divide the word, that is, we pause, correction. Correction. Can you say that, my dear students? Repeat it after me and you will see that you can't say it in any other way. You cannot decide that I want to pause after the letter C. Then the word would be k. Oh, you can't say it that way because the word is correction. The word is correction. Where do I pause? I pause at the end of each syllable. So, if I ask you how many syllables are there in the word correction, you would be able to tell me that it has 3 syllables. Correction. You get that? And then it also consists of phonemes. Phoneme is the smallest unit of sound. The smallest distinguishable unit of sound. What do I mean by that? Each language has its own distinctive sounds. You can make out these sounds. Distinctive. Get the word? That means you can distinguish one from the other. Most of us know Indian languages. Think of any Indian language. There is a b and there is a bh, right? But in English, there is no bh. So, in an Indian language, Gujarati for example, or Hindi for that matter, you would notice that there is a difference between a word which has b and a word which has bh, which means the phonemes in Indian languages like Gujarati or Hindi, b is one phoneme and bh is another phoneme. But in English, there is no bh. So the distinctive units of sound in a language are called phonemes. It is the smallest distinctive sound of a language. As we learn a language like English, we have to know the phonemes of the language. We have to know the letters of the language. And if we want to pronounce properly, correctly, we must know the phonetics of the language. That is, you must know the sound system. It's a science, right? Phonetics, you know, is the science of speech sounds. So you must know that too. So, what are we talking about? We are talking about the word, how the word can be divided according to the spelling, according to the syllables, and how the syllables are composed of phonemes. And what is a phoneme? A distinctive, the smallest distinctive unit of sound in a language is called a syllable. Let's look at the next slide. I'm talking about syllables which have only one syllable. Talking about words which have only one syllable. Such words are called monosyllabic, right? Syllable is the noun, and from that we get the adjective syllabic. So these are mono of course you know is single. So these are monosyllabic words. So I'm talking to you now, my dear students, about the monosyllable. What does that mean? The words that I have for you on this slide, you would notice the words that we have for practice have only one syllable. Can you say the word after me? I'm sure you can all say it in your classroom together, or for each one, so that he or she can hear it and can understand what I mean by monosyllable. We have book, we have school, we have write, class, be, shine, yours, cheap, marks. Say these words again, my dear students, and think of the word correction, and think of these words. Compare and contrast these words with correction, and you would realize that when you say the word correction, there are pauses. And why do we have these pauses? Because there is something which is happening inside our mouth, the tongue, the jaw, the teeth, the upper palate. Something changes, and that is why it is correction. But what about the words I have for you on this slide? The words for practice: book, school, write, class, be, shine, yours, cheap, marks. Say it any number of times you want, my dear students, and you would notice there is no way in which we can break this word. You might argue, of course I can break book into boo and ka, but then does it sound like book? It certainly does not. So you cannot change the pronunciation just because you want to break the word into two syllables. You can't, my dear students, because these are monosyllabic words. Remember, mono means single. So all these words that we have for practice have only one syllable. Would you like to say that again? Do try it. Say it loud enough, or say it softly to yourself, but you must articulate the word. That means there can be no silent reading, my dear students. You have to utter the word in order to understand what is happening. Remember, when we talk about word accent, we cannot see it in written English. The accent, the stress comes in spoken language, and therefore it is important for you to speak the word. Please try saying that again. And notice how, since all these words have only one syllable, there is no way in which we can break these words. So what are the words that I have for practice? These are not the only words in the English language which have one syllable. This is only an example. So you've got book, school, write, class, be, shine, yours, cheap, marks. There is no stress. Why? Because you have not divided the words into syllables, because these words have only one syllable. And the stress or the accent is there only in words which have more than one syllable. Can I think of other words? You ask yourself. Of course you can. Think of any word, usually maybe 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, even 2 for that matter. You've got a word like 8. You've got a word like 9. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, not 7, because 7 is more than one syllable. Try saying that again, my dear students. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All these are monosyllabic words. But 7 is 2 syllables. 7, 8, 9, 10. And with 10 we stop with monosyllables, because after that, if you try saying 11, you know that there's more than one syllable. And 12, again one syllable. 13, 2, 14, 2. You can go on with the numbers, my dear students, but it's not only numbers that you need to practice with. What about bench? What about girl? These are again monosyllabic words. But what about table? What about teacher? What about student? You would notice that the words that I've just said, table, teacher, student, all these are not monosyllabic. You need to practice monosyllabic words. So remember that there is no breaking of the word. There is no pause halfway through the word. You are sitting in a class and you probably have a board in front of you. Probably the teacher uses a chalk. Okay? You've got a board which is monosyllabic. You've got chalk which is monosyllabic. But after writing something, if the teacher wants to rub that out, the teacher uses a duster. A duster is not monosyllabic. It is more than one syllable. In fact, it has 2 syllables. The word duster has got 2 syllables. As you can see me as I pronounce these words, I'm sure when you try to pronounce these words, my dear students, you will notice that there is something happening inside your mouth, the organs of speech. Notice again, my dear students, when I say duster, duster, try saying it and you will notice after dus, something happens inside your mouth, dus, and then t, duster, student. Okay, what about a word like blackboard? That's not monosyllabic. I just said board is monosyllabic, but blackboard is not monosyllabic. Are you wondering, do words in the English language have only 1 or 2 syllables? No, my dear. We can go on to 3 and 4 and 5. We just had 2 syllables. Let's look at 3. Beautiful, important. Say that, importance. 3. But what happens to importantly? It becomes 4. Introduction, it's 4. Introductory, it becomes 5. You can go on and on. It's not always, my dear students, the number of letters which determines the number of syllables. The number of syllables is not directly proportionate to the number of letters. Because remember, once again, I'm repeating that the syllable is when you utter the word. Just by looking at the spelling of a word, you cannot determine the number of syllables. In order to know the number of syllables, it's important for you to, I'm repeating it again, and repeating it with a lot of emphasis, that you must say the word. You must utter the word. You must articulate the word. Utter, 2 syllables. Articulate, 4 syllables. Come on, you can play a game. Maybe when you're free, and see what are the number of syllables in the words that you often use. College. School is 1 syllable, but college is 2 syllables. University becomes 5 syllables. University. Of course you say university, but in order to understand the syllable division, you have to say university. So you've got 5 syllables. Isn't that interesting, my dear students, how we break words into syllables? It is important for you to know how to break words into syllables before you can really understand the concept of accent. The two are very closely related. But it's like learning the alphabet before you learn the word. So you have to learn the syllable before you learn the concept of accent. Can we look at these words now? I'm continuing with the practice. I've already given you words, but here I'm giving you more practice. About, allow, away, accident, bicycle, delicate, photography, education, importance, father, clarity, association. Say these words once again after me, my dear students. About, allow, away. Which syllable, first of all, have you succeeded in breaking them into syllables? Of course you have, with all the practice that we had with the previous slide. About, allow, away. So you know that there are two syllables. About. How would you divide it? After A, you put a dash, you put a hyphen. About, allow, away. Accident, bicycle, delicate. Photography, photography. Education, importance. Okay, so you can go on. You can try syllables, words with 2 syllables, words with 3 syllables, words with 4 syllables. This is just to give you an idea how the accent can shift. I'm going to talk about accent in greater detail. Don't worry about that. But just for you to listen carefully when I say these words. Try saying these words after me. Try saying them the way I'm saying it. And when I say the way I'm saying it, you should be able to notice, to perceive, to hear the stress. I'm not talking about stress patterns as yet. I'm talking about stress. Can you hear me clearly when I say about, allow, away? About, allow, away. I'm sure you've started your phonetic transcription. You've started your phonetic script. I'm sorry, not the transcription as yet, but the phonetic script. And therefore you know the vowel which is at the beginning of about, allow, away, is different from the vowel sound which is at the beginning of apple or accident. Notice about, allow, away, around, astray. In all these words, what is that vowel sound that you hear? Can you hear that? It is the weak the same sound that you hear at the end of father, mother, brother, sister, higher, other, another. Can you hear that sound? Do you want me to say that again? The same sound that you hear at the end of words like father, father, father. Try saying that. What is that vowel sound at the end of the word father? Mother, brother, sister, other. All the comparative words that you have. Higher, fatter, thinner, clearer, cleverer. In all those lower, slower, thinner, right? So you have the same in about, allow, away. But in accident, it is different. Bicycle, delicate, photography, education, importance, father, clarity, association. This is for practice, because if you say these words after me, if you can hear clearly the way I say a word like about and the way I say accident, accident, about, accident, try saying that again the way I'm saying it, and you will be able to see which syllable is getting the stress. We need to be able to divide the words into syllables, I said. I've given you examples, but to make it clear, let me once again tell you that in words like book and many other words that we looked at earlier, school, girl, boy, bench, chair, shine, right, 9, 1. In all these words, there is only one syllable. What about words like college, teacher, student, table? What is happening? Seven. There are 2 syllables. Think of words. You can write the words, no problem. But just writing won't help. You have to say the words after me. So these are words with 2 syllables. These are simple words. I'm sure you can think of them. You've got college. You've got teacher. You've got student. Now please remember, it's not the letters that we are talking about, but it's the division of the word into syllables. City. It's only 4 letters, but there are 2 syllables. City. Town again has 4 letters, but it is a single syllable. Town, town, town. Say that after me. World, earth, all of them have only 1 syllable. But you have words with 4 letters which can have 2 syllables. So remember, it's not the number of letters that we are talking about when we talk about accent and stress. What we are talking about is syllable division. When is it that something is happening inside my mouth to the organs within the mouth which cause me to speak, which creates sound? What happens there is what I have to look at. So school is 1, but college is 2. What about 3-syllable words? Come on, I have a simple word and I'm a word you love. Beautiful. Beautiful. So you've got 3. Can you think of other 3-syllabled words? Of course you can. I've given you many examples, but I'm sure you can also think about it. And then for importantly. Importantly. Can you get the division, my dear students? Importantly. Importance has 3. Say that after me. Importance has 3, but importantly has 4. Photograph. Photograph has 3, but photographer has got 4. Okay, so 3, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Come on. I'm sure you can remember other words. I'm sure you can discuss that with your friends, with your classmates and see. Play the game. Say a word. How many syllables does this word have? Give me a 3-syllable word. You can go on that way so that syllable division becomes easy. And remember, what is easy is fun. And what is fun is easy to remember. That's the way you will have to learn your syllable division, so that we can move on to accent. How do we show primary accent? There's a vertical bar above and in front of the syllable. So if I have a word like allow, it is allow which is taking the accent. The secondary accent, which is not so important for you, is below and in front of the syllable. That's just a bit of information for you, my dear students, because we will talk only about the primary accent. So, where does it come? It comes before the syllable at the top, and it is a small vertical bar. A very small vertical bar, maybe the size of a comma in your, as you are typing, you know the size of a comma. It's just that big. But remember, it's vertical. It's not curved like the comma. Can you say these words after me? Categorical. Categorical. Are you putting up your fingers and counting? Categorical. Oh, that's fine. I'm sure you've got that. Examination. International. International. Notification. Notification. That's 5. Deposition. Deposition. That's 4. Comprehensible. I'll say that again. Comprehensible. Comprehensible. You can't say I want to break sybil into C and bl. You can't do that. Comprehensible. Comprehensible. How do you say the word? As you break it up into syllables, my dear students, once again I'm reminding you, you can't break it any way you want, because the pronunciation should be as it is when you say the word without breaking it into syllables. So if you have a word like categorical, 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 say that together or say that with syllable division. Say the word international, international. You can't say national. You can't say that because then it doesn't sound like international. International, notification. Do you get what I'm saying, my dear students? Are you trying the same words or are you trying new words? Whatever you are doing, remember the syllable division should not make the words sound artificial. That is very important. I'm repeating that. When you break up a word, it should not sound artificial. So notification, when you break it, has to be notification. Notification. Don't worry how many letters there are in a syllable. It could be 2, it could be 3, sometimes it could even be 4. Notification. When I say shun, it is T-I-O-N. But when I say no, there are only 2. Let that not worry you. We are not worried about the number of letters. We are interested in the pronunciation. Where can I break the word? Where does one syllable end and another begin? There should not be any artificiality when you break it up. It should sound natural. So let's take a word like notification again. Say it after me, notification. And say it with syllable division. Notification. Notification. The first 4 syllables, my dear students, you would notice have only 2 letters each. No, T, Fi, K. And then when it comes to shun, there are 4. But that shouldn't worry you one bit. Remember, we are talking about syllable division. We are not talking about spelling. We are not playing a game where we count the number of letters in a word and divide them equally. We are not doing that. We are pronouncing the word as we would do naturally and continuously as when we say notification. And then we see, when is it that in my mouth, no T, something is happening. I can go on saying no as long as I want, but then when I want to say T, it has to be notification. Notification, notification. There are other words too, but I'm taking this word because this word syllable division, I think, is very, very easy for you to understand. You can do it to comprehensible, you can do it to international, you can do it to examination. In the English language, there is a stress shift. The accent shifts when the word changes. The word is the same. Academy. From academy we have academic, and from academic we have academician. But notice, academy, the stress is on ca. Academic and then academician. Notice there is a shift. Academy, academic and academician. Notice the shift. Bacteria, bacteriology and bacteriological. Politics, political, politician. Politics, the stress on po. Politician, political, the stress is on li. And politician, see how it shifts. Politics, political, politician. Interesting. The textbook that you have, my dear students, the book that you are following, a textbook of English phonetics for Indian students by T. Balasubramanian. It would be interesting to open page 135. Please make a note of it, page 135. Go back home and try reading these words. Notice how I read the word. Advertise, advertisement. Examine, examinee, examination. Inferior, inferiority. Photograph, photographer. Photographic. Politics, political, politician. Politics, political, politician. Responsible, responsible, responsibility. Notice how there is a shift in accent. How do I know it? Say it. Say it more than once. Don't say it in such a way that it becomes artificial. Say photograph, say photographer, and say I'm sure you can notice the shift. Say academy, say academic, and say academician. Notice the shift. This stress shift is important because the stress indicates how the word is uttered. It decides the pitch, and therefore, when you say a word, you must consciously notice the accent of the word. I want you to read these words again with me. Look at the slide, my dear students. Advertise, advertise, photograph. I'll say that again. Advertise, photograph. Advertise, photograph. Notice that the stress is on the first syllable. Can you say that with me again? Advertise, photograph. Now say advertisement, advertisement, responsible, responsible. Notice that it is on the second syllable. Examinee, examinee, politician, politician, not politics, but politician, politician. Where is it coming? It's coming on the third. Examinee is different from examination, examination, inferiority, inferiority. You can't get it in one day, my dear students, but the more you practice, the better you will get in reading them out clearly. As I told you, go back to your textbook, page 135, and you will understand how exactly the words have to be stressed. Remember that vertical bar at the beginning of the syllable? That is the stressed syllable. What happens in compound words? We have so many compound words. The first column that I have for you, the stress is on the first. Anything, backbone, earthquake, goldsmith, air raid, footpath. Notice that the stress is on the first syllable. Can you all say that with me again, my dear students? Anything, backbone, earthquake, goldsmith, air raid, footpath. Again, the stress is on the first syllable. Anything, backbone, earthquake, goldsmith, air raid, footpath. What happens to the second column, my dear students? Herself, however, themselves, afternoon, homemade, good looking. The stress is on the second. We have to make a little effort. It doesn't come very easily because we are not native speakers of English. But there is a problem. An English lady, a British lady, once told me she couldn't understand the word hotel. The auto fellow, the driver she met at the airport, kept saying, "Which hotel do you want to go to? Which hotel do you want to go to?" All of us say hotel. But the British lady, the British accent, the stress is on the second syllable, and therefore they say hotel. So she had a problem understanding hotel because they say hotel. I'm not suggesting that we would be able to speak the way the British speak, and there is no single British pronunciation. But yet, we must try and come as close as we can so that we can communicate, so that we are understood. Can we say the words again, my dear students? The first column, remember, the stress is on the first word, on the first syllable, I mean. Anything, backbone, earthquake, goldsmith, air raid, footpath. What happens in the second? Herself, however, themselves, afternoon, homemade, good looking. So the stress is on the second. In the English language, the function of the word can cause a stress change. Let me say that again. When there is a change in function, That means depending on whether the word is a noun or a verb, an adjective or a verb, there could be a stress change. Look at the word direct. How do you pronounce it? Somebody would say direct and somebody would say direct. It depends on what function it is doing. It depends on what function the word is. Direct, I came home direct. Can you direct me to the nearest petrol pump? Can you direct me? Can you direct me? The verb is direct, whereas I came home direct. So direct, you notice the difference. The first syllable, look at the words on your slide. The first syllable, object, perfect, produce, record. What happens when the object word, instead of being a noun, becomes a verb? Don't object to whatever I'm saying. The object that you see in front of you is a computer. The object that you see in front of you is a computer. The object, okay, where it is a noun. But when somebody objects to what I'm saying, it becomes a verb. And therefore I say, don't object to all that I'm saying. Object. The verb, you notice, my dear students, can you hear the difference between object and object? You know, we talk of subject and object. There it is object. But when somebody disagrees with me, I would say, don't object to whatever I'm saying. Notice when there is a change in the function of the word, when the word is not a noun but it becomes a verb, there is a shift in the stress. So, functions of words in the English language can lead to a change in stress. You've got words like perfect, perfect, produce, produce, record, record. Okay, this is the stress change because of the function. There are some rules for accentual patterns. I cannot really tell you that you must learn the rules so that you're able to have the accent properly. But it would help to know some of the rules. And what are these rules? Number one, all English words have accent. And when I say all English words which are not monosyllabic. Words with weak prefixes, the accent is on the root. It would be interesting to go back to your text when you go back home and try and read these words on page 137, 138, 139, 140, 141. From page 137 to 141 in your textbook. You have words with weak prefixes. For example, the prefix a. So you've got abode, abroad, ahead, alone, because, become, below, beneath. You would notice that the accent is on the root and not on the prefix. Inflectional prefixes do not affect accent. Recommend, relate, solicit, submit. When these words become recommended, related, solicited, submitted, you would notice that there is no change. What happens to words like beauty, beautiful, color, colorful, duty, dutiful, brother, brotherhood, coward, cowardice, fever, feverish, white, whitish, abuse, abusive? There is no change though we are adding a suffix. I want you to listen carefully to the way I'm pronouncing the words. Bottom, bottomless, certain, certainly, bitter, bitterness, collect, collector, author, authorship, laugh, laughter, city, citizen. Notice that in none of these words is there any change in the stress. It continues with the same. I want you to look at words where there is the suffix ik, ikal, etc. And you would notice that in these words, the ik or the ikal, etc. do not take the accent. please remember, they do not take the accent. What do we mean? That in a word like pathetic, sympathetic, terrific, the fic does not take, the ick does not take, but the syllable prior to that. And therefore, terrific, biological, chemically, atrocious, commercial, ability, capacity, and so on and on. My dear students, there are rules. But I would suggest that it would be a better idea to look at the dictionary, to understand the pattern and say that. And remember, we cannot learn word accent in one day. What have I attempted to do in this lecture? I've attempted to tell you what is it that is meant by accent, stress, what causes it, what are the reasons that we need to use it, how do we use it, how do we indicate it, and in order to get the right accent, how it is important to have appropriate syllable division. So what will you do? You will have to go back home, my dear students, and look at that chapter on word accent in the prescribed textbook. It is about 10 pages. So if you have been making notes as I have been speaking to you, I'm sure with those running notes and the textbook in front of you, you will be able to understand. First, you will need to write these words in phonetic script. Yes, you've already learned the script, I'm sure. Once you have written it in phonetics, the second thing would be to break it up into syllables, because a word like examination, X, how are you going to write it? There is no X in the phonetic script, so you will have to write something else. I'm not going to give you the answer. I'm sure you can do it. Once you have written notification, you have broken it into syllables. Say it once, twice, thrice. Say it properly. Remember how I said it, and I'm sure you will understand where actually the accent has to come. This is an important part of the spoken language, and when we attempt to speak English, it would be a good idea to understand the stress or the accent, because that will give you the right intonation when you speak. Each language has its own peculiarities, has its own characteristic features. And if we want to be teachers of that language in particular, we must make a conscious effort to speak the language the best way we can. And therefore, pay attention to your word accent from the examination point of view, certainly, but more as you speak English to more and more people, so that your communication is better. That, my dear students, was the lecture on word accent. I hope you understood and enjoyed it as much as I did in bringing this lecture to you. Thank you very much.
SANDHAN, All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.